Yeah, I guess as Michael said, I suppose it's fairly loose today, and I'm really hoping just to be able to speak about things that you're interested to hear about. I have no idea whether you know of some of the music that I've put out over the years or what I do, but my name is Wally DeBacker, and I've been interested in music since I was probably 10 years old. Started playing drums when I was a teenager, put together a band in high school with my buddies. And when that broke up, I started making music under the name Gautier in my early 20s. I've also spent the last 10 years plus playing with a rock and roll band called The Basics. And yes, as I guess Michael and Minister Crean mentioned before, I've recently been to LA and won some trophies from American folks. But yeah, so Michael mentioned about perhaps just starting with a song and a recording of that song, which I guess is the core of what I'm interested in doing, making records. I started to get interested in making music, or I guess in recordings of music when I was 10 years old. Like I said, I was particularly fascinated by a band that were hugely popular at the time called the KLF, and they had a number of hits all around the world, especially in the UK and in Australia, that are actually very heavily sample based. And so 10 years later is when I started investigating using sampling as a method for writing songs and making recordings. But I do realize that perhaps through my teenage years listening to lots of music that involved electronic instruments and sampling sources of existing music in order to make new ideas must have been something that was influencing me all along. So yeah, after I played in my high school band for a number of years, 5 or 6 years, playing drums and singing and starting to write songs mainly on the piano and getting kind of interested in synthesizers and the different sounds that could come from those things. The first stuff that I started to put together that became released was eventually released under the Gautier name was very sample-based stuff. So does everybody there, kind of know about sampling and how it works to make recordings, sampling records or existing sources of music? Anybody raise hands who has no idea what sampling is about? A few, okay. A few at Campbelltown maybe. So I'm really interested in, I really love records. I have done since I listened to lots of pop music when I was growing up, and I guess my tastes have diversified a lot. I like listening to all sorts of different music, lots of different artists, lots of different styles of music. I don't really differentiate or prioritize, but I'm really interested in the recorded medium, how I guess how human beings can capture sound through technology and then transmit ideas across time. And for me, especially in the context of a 3-minute pop song, often I think really wondrous ideas and experiences through recorded mediums. So the way that I make music is very much based around taking existing recorded stuff, especially from vinyl records that I collect in op shops, and taking small parts of those records and recombining them into new pieces of music, and then along the way I often add instruments that I play myself and my own voice. But yeah, are there any, I don't know if I should start with questions here. Maybe I'll just give you a bit of an example of a song that's very sample based that you may know. I put it out about 6 years ago in Australia. It's called Heart's a Mess. Has anybody heard that tune?
It's my favorite song.
Cool. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Cool, great. So I have currently on my MacBook Pro a piece of software open which is called Ableton Live. It's a German piece of software. I've been using it for about 6 years to write music and to record music and to edit and mix it. When I recorded and wrote the track Heart's a Mess, I was using an older PC computer, a desktop computer in a small room in a share house I was living in, and I was using an older piece of software called Acid Pro, which is very similar to Ableton, but at around the time when I finished the song Heart's a Mess, I switched over to this piece of software because it had a lot more interesting sort of developments in terms of what you could do manipulating sound and recording it and putting stuff together, and also very fluidly translating those sounds you put together in the studio into live performances. So yeah, I've been using this piece of software for about 6 years. So I've got a mix here of a track Heart's a Mess just on this channel in Ableton. Hopefully this will come through. It's quite a long song. It's 6.5 minutes long. Maybe I'll stop it somewhere along the way. But here it is. pieces of your heart. Let me peer inside. Let me in where only your thoughts have been. Let me occupy your mind as you do mine. It goes on, you know, there's some other things, drum solos, whatnot. There's another chorus, there's another, etc., etc. So, I thought maybe I'd let you know how some of that worked. So, as you can see here, I had the mix here in this Ableton project at the top. That's this, this sound file at the top here. The way this track started was I sampled a song by Harry Belafonte, which you may know, called Day-O, the Banana Boat song. Let me just find it in my iTunes library here. And I sampled it. I have a sample here from the original record that I sampled it from, which was a mono record from the 60s. Very crackly and beaten up, that I found in an op shop for 50 cents. You may know the song. It goes a bit like this. And then eventually gets into all night and a drink of rum. Daylight come and we want go home. Stack banana till the morning come. Daylight come and we want go home. Fantastic song, one of my favourite recordings. And so you may hear there in the background, behind Harry's voice, the sort of tuned drum that's kind of playing a rhythm, but also kind of like a bass line at the same time. Especially here, maybe at the end of every bar, the kind of sound that goes, which is like when you wet your finger and actually drag your finger across the skin of a conga or a drum, you can get the skin to kind of change pitch and make it go woo. And so, yeah, I got fascinated by the idea that there were little snippets in Harry Belafonte's song Day-O where there were bits of that drum sound and that loop that were isolated without any vocals or other sounds over them, and whether I could cut those little snippets together into a new kind of clean bar of music. So probably still to this day, this is the most effort I've gone to make a sample. But I basically listened through the 3 odd minutes of this song and found all the little snippets where I could take elements of that drum loop and cobble it back together into one loop of music. So this is what it ended up sounding like. That's this sound file here. So that's kind of the main loop that underpins the song that I eventually put together, called Heart's a Mess. And yeah, I kind of took probably about 7 to 10 different snippets from Harry Belafonte's song, especially this element, that high bent sort of drum note. And by pitch shifting that down an octave in software, that's how I got the bottom note of a loop. So this note is just an octave down from, and in between I found enough snippets that didn't have his voice over the top of it to make the middle of the loop. You can hear a little bit of a reverb on his voice there, with a little bit of double bass. So from all these little snippets, I eventually managed to cobble together what I'm highlighting there, one bar of music. And I thought that that particular bar of music had just, I don't know, a very interesting hypnotic kind of quality to it that made me want to add other sounds to it and extend from there.